Hello, this is Christina Wallace, and today I am going to try my hand at painting a naked cake with a cocoa butter. So for this you would need cocoa butter beans and very hot water. As you could see, if I cover it, it's steam, so I just poured it from the kettle, and that should last me until it goes a little bit cooler, so maybe for 15 or 20 minutes. So the best way of doing it is just to place my palette over that hot water. See, it just touches it, and then I'm going to put some cocoa beans in there. Now these cocoa beans were got for me by my friend from Squire's Kitchen, but I should imagine you could get in most places online. It kind of melts very quickly, as you can see, and here you add dust, edible dust. Do not try paste or a gel, it just won't work. I tried. And because I am planning to paint ganache, dark chocolate ganache cake, the colors should really be quite light, and so I'm adding some white dust. Don't add corn flour, it won't work like it does for flowers, but basically it just whitens the whole thing up, and it really does help, in my opinion. I pretty much did the same, added a bit of white to the colors across the palette. This mix here is what I've used already for whatever it is I was doing, and you just have to put it back in hot water for it to start melting pretty much straight away, so you could reuse your palette, which is really convenient, I think. So here I'm going to start with peony, and as you could see on the screen, I'm copying the flower I found somewhere online, on Pinterest to be precise, and I'm not sure I can actually publish these things on YouTube for copyright reasons. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to add a picture, or rather a couple of pictures that I tried to copy for this cake, on my Instagram account tomorrow, so make sure you check it out if you're really interested. If you don't have Instagram, then by all means go and have a look at my Pinterest board. It's in a bit of a mess though, I must warn you, but I'll put it under Watercolor board, I think, if you're familiar with Pinterest at all. If not, just Google, I don't know, paintings of flowers, of kind of Dutch painters. Anyway, back to the picture and me using this new medium. It starts off similarly to watercolor in the sense that I outline the shapes of each petal, so it's a bit like a jigsaw puzzle, this flower. I outline the shapes, I freehand it all, which is it's a transferable skill. Obviously, if you do it in watercolor, then you just do the same. And once your pieces of your jigsaw are there, then you start filling it out. Now, my first impression of working with it is that it's actually really easy to lay the color down. You just kind of have to lay it down in the right spots. But as a medium, it works beautifully. I mean, just like a paint, it's no different. You won't be able to do watercolor effect with it because it's just different. It's I don't know, it's like oil or gouache, if anyone is familiar with painting mediums. But so yeah, it would take getting used to it, I suppose, unless you already have the skill, in which case something like this would be like a walk in the park for you. A lot easier than for me, that's for sure. Now, I still, on the first impression, seem to prefer watercolor, how it kind of allows slightly more surreal, gentle, suggestive shapes that are not as definite as this. So it's just it just depends. I mean, I'm trying to figure out as I'm doing this. This is a voiceover, but as I was doing it, I was trying to figure out whether this would be the medium for me, and I have mixed feelings, because I think it would disallow certain kind of shapes, which I quite like, and transparency and all that beauty. On the other hand, I really like the idea of adding color straight onto Ganache, and although I haven't tried, I'm pretty sure you could do the same thing to Buttercream, and also you could paint over Fondant as well. So in that sense, it gives you so much flexibility. And just to mention, some of you do not like using vodka in your paint, so for you guys this would be a good medium to use. So yeah, as to the difficulties, there are difficulties as well. The difficulties are in the fact that you really need to think your design through with a little bit more care and attention than you would with watercolor. As I said, watercolor is more forgiving. With this one, I know it's my first time, but even though with watercolor you do not need to pre-plan as much, with this one they're definite shapes, so something that looks a little bit like a flower but not quite a flower, and that's okay with watercolor. With this one I am starting to get a feeling that it's not okay, and the proof of that would be that I have actually planned this flower with quite precision. I've looked, I've paid attention to how it works, and with the rest of them I kind of thought, yeah, I'll wing it. The ceiling in the kitchen has started to leak halfway through this cake, so I kind of got distracted. So anyway, so the first flower came out the best because I planned it, and all other ones were a bit of a hit and miss because I didn't plan them. So that doesn't work very well with my temperament personally, but yeah. Anyway, moving on from that, so I was just looking at tutorials online as I was doing it, and it gives you different techniques as to what to do. And so this is a second flower, and yeah, you just kind of add different colors. As you could see, you add pink to the bottom and then white to the top. Now, and you can use something like this, or maybe a toothpick to kind of add a bit of texture. If you have just stumbled across my channel, I don't actually paint all that many cakes and do all that many cake painting tutorials. I generally work with flowers, mostly in cold porcelain. I obsess over flowers and always try new techniques, try to figure things out, and relay some of those figurings to my channel viewers. I tend to go on about paste, different cold porcelains. I work with sugar flowers as well because this is my original medium, and then I kind of got a bit fed up with seeing them go waste in bins or even on cakes, including salt cakes. It seemed like a waste. And so yeah, I moved on to cold porcelain and I love it to bits. But anyway, back to painted cakes. I have painted few cakes in watercolor effect, and some of them got quite a few views for my channel at least, and I got loads of questions about painting cakes that are not covered with fondant, which is why I'm doing this particular tutorial. So if you have a love for flowers, painted, sculptured, whatever, my channel is your gig. Really do subscribe, add some likes, share on your social media because that really helps me. So anyway, so back to the flower here. As you could see, I used a little bit of a dry brush to kind of smoothen the whole sharpness down, and now I'm going to add extra layer in of another shade, and I could go over them with dry brush just like now, and kind of blend the layers into each other. The thing about this cocoa painting is that the colors tend to overlay quite nicely. So with the watercolor effect, you take a bit of gel and some spirit, normally vodka. With water is possible as well, but that's that's all another subject. So anyway, with watercolor you put down one color, and then if you try to add another color over the top, unless it's just thin little lines or something, this other color would probably interfere and very likely spoil the layer underneath. So it's a bit tricky and doesn't really work very well. With this type of thing, with the cockeye painting, it works really well actually. You could, I mean, I guess it's understandable seeing that it's oil and not watercolor. But anyway, so you lay down your first layer, which could be white layer for this kind of a cake, and then almost immediately, it dries so quickly, you could just lay on the next color over the top of it, and then you could blend the edges together or just leave it as is, depends what you really want to do with it. Now here I am trying something else, and by the way, all these flowers that just appeared out of nowhere, the truth is that I don't have enough time to cover all the flowers, and I'm not particularly keen on this yellow and this red color, red flower, so I'm just not going to do anything about it. I think most people could just kind of put something like this together quite easily. I'm just playing with it really. So anyway, so this thing I'm doing, it's on a picture that's in my screen. It's kind of it's just a lilac, and the lilac that I'm copying looks very much like a lilac. But what I'm trying to do here is I'm trying to see if slightly abstract kind of way would work with watercolors, because this is what I really like, when it doesn't necessarily have to be a flower to look like a flower and be very pretty. So yeah, I think it could work if you make yourself do it and practice. Anyway, so this is Daisy, and it's probably the easiest possible flower to make with this particular paint, so-called paint, and it just requires minimum skills, and it looks actually quite nice. So you could make a cake just with a bouquet of this daisies to start with, like a little birthday cake, and it would look elegant and lovely in my opinion. So I'm going back to layering my lilac, trying to get the right shape, and yeah, I think it looks fine. I think that technique has a potential. And here I'm thinking of trying something that is not a solid line, because I think this cake at this point in time has quite a few solid lines, so I'm going to not bother with solid lines and just try to alternate the textures of the pattern. So here I'm coming back to my cake the next week, next time I got a chance to do anything about it and try to finish it off. And it still smells deliciously of dark chocolate. By the way, inside this cake is just foam. It's a fake cake, as fake as could be. But I want to show you a few things that you could do with it. For example, this pattern I hate it, so I've decided to cover over it with another flower, and this flower is just quick improvisation, but it worked in my opinion better than whatever there was inside. Now you have two layers of cocoa there, so working magic with this toothpick doesn't quite work, but it did give me an interesting idea. Now it looks like little cracks in the paint. Sometimes you get this effect with actual paintings and it looks really nice, so you could use it just as a particular cake effect and then overlay with almost dry brush, and this flower doesn't look very nice in my opinion, but you could use that effect for other projects. And from this point on, I'm pretty much losing the plot. I've not liked the initial design, the initial pattern, so I tried to overlay it and the overlay wasn't great. So if there was any messages in this top tier from me to you, is that unless you're really confident in composition and in medium itself, perhaps do a pre-plan, perhaps draw a sketch of some sort don't rely on free flow because it just may not work. And this is about it. I hope you found this video useful. If you did, please like and share and all the rest of it, all that jazz. And I will see you all next week with a new flower tutorial. Have a lovely weekend.